The president kind of like just yeeting the relationship when it comes to Spain, because Spain said we can't use our bases. So the military, at a minimum, we have Rota, we have Sierra de Retin, we have a few sites inside of Spain where we're military sites. Rota's the big one where we can take vessels there. We can take our ships can be there. We have a lot of big birds such as a Pegasus, KC-130s, KC-135s, bigger, just like bigger, larger planes can go there. That's a place where a lot of civilians go to do like MAC flights and stuff like that. They said we can't use their bases to do any type of launches against Iran. Well, this is the president's response.
European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases. And that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it. But we don't have to. But they were unfriendly. And so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people. But they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
We get a lot of stuff from Spain, man. As I mentioned, we get our olive oils, not just from Italy, but from Spain. We're getting pharmaceuticals from them. We are getting wine from them. We're getting citrus fruits that are difficult for us to grow here, such as mandarin, such as lemons. We grow a lot of oranges in Florida, but a lot of stuff we just don't have the environment to grow here. And then we also export a lot of stuff over there. About $7 billion of crude petroleum or crude oil that hasn't been refined yet. You got to remember, as we get the actual stuff out the earth, as we actually mine or we get petroleum out the earth, there's only so much crude oil we can refine at once. We can store it once, public, private, whatever. So excess we export and make bread off of. Also, refined gasoline, petroleum. There's only so much we keep in our coffers, we keep for ourselves, and then we send that shit over. Hopefully it doesn't just hurt us, okay? Because it sounds like they were on their Spanish first energy, right? And if they were on their Spanish first energy and they decided to now we can't use their bases, because you got to remember their bases contain the runway and the space for a lot of different things. Rota, Spain allows for us to take our ships, our vessels there easily. We can have larger ships that are on their way into the Mediterranean. They're about to go through the Gibraltar, and they want to, before they go around Portugal and they enter the Mediterranean, Spain is kind of like sometimes the first stop that we do, because after we get into the Mediterranean, the only places we really can go to are maybe Cyprus and stuff like that. Like Spain's a key partner for us. So we also have like Pegasus and KC-135s and KC-130s and other larger aircraft that can't land on other bases except for places like Germany. They are able to use Spain for that type of stuff. So for them to say we can't use their bases to launch attacks on Iran, sound like they were being Spanish first. I'm kind of an American first type of guy. I don't know, man. I don't know. Hopefully this doesn't like affect. If you're a person that does business with Spain, mostly a lot of Californians do business with Spain. I would hate to live in California personally because of the gun laws. But for the trading relationship, if you lose that, man, that sucks, bro. That really does suck, because I love me some Spanish wine. Of course, I like Italian wine, but I like some Spanish wine. But one thing I want to talk to you guys about is yesterday it was known to be 3 American, let's just call them troops, because we don't know which they still haven't given us what branch of service they were with. We don't know if they were Marines or Army, Air Force, if they were Guardians. We don't know. But now we know that number is now 6. The first U.S. 6 soldiers to die. Apparently, they were in like a makeshift trailer on the base in Kuwait. They didn't get any warnings that the attack was about to occur. And the makeshift operations center at the civilian port in Kuwait. So we were at a civilian port in Kuwait, and this post is saying U.S. soldiers. I still haven't seen if there's U.S. soldiers or not. I guess they're just using the word soldier as a general term because I don't know if they were part of the army or what. But it really does sadden my heart to know that they didn't have the opportunity to get out of this like makeshift trailer, which really does kind of sucks. The service members who were killed were working out of a trailer even as Iran fired ballistic missiles and drones across the Middle East. So this guy says stunning planning failure. I don't agree with that. The way I see it is bravery, because if you've ever been in the military, if you see the drones and the ballistic missiles being launched and you have the steadfast courage to stay at your post until you're told that you're allowed to leave it, I see that as bravery. That's how I see it. So it does suck that they didn't have the opportunity to evac from that site. I will say that this freaking clown, Tommy Tuberville, who's never been in the military, who was a football coach, who I think that's the fantastic part of his resume. But for him to say this, it just felt very nonchalant that as he's talking about the loss of these
buttons to
troops.
The missiles and started hitting their neighbors.
Yeah.
And the neighbors are all mad now. So it's just unfortunate. You know, we lost what you said earlier, six people now. And my understanding, they were in Kuwait in one of their neighbors, and they got hit. So it's just unfortunate that happened. But this is war. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But I'm telling you, who's going to win this war? The United States of America is going to win this war.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is war. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Listen, let me just give you some advice, right? I couldn't be a politician, but when you're talking about the death of troops, there can't be a tagline after you acknowledge the loss of them. Okay? Unless you're the commander in chief, I think that's the only person it might be appropriate for. There can't be a tagline. There can't be well, this is war. You know how it is. You know, especially if you've never laced up the boots. There can't be a tagline thereafter. Now, you may be able to massage that a different way, but bro, I tell you, that is just, for me personally, it's pretty disgusting. But to your question earlier, is there a consideration for us putting troops on the ground in the service area altogether? Well, President Trump tells me, this is Stephen Nelson. Stephen Nelson is I think he's with the New York Post. Yeah, he is with the New York Post. President Trump tells me he won't rule out sending U.S. troops into Iran. I don't care about polling. I have to do the right thing. Here's my only issue I have right now. The biggest issue I have right now is that the military is not the administration's toys, right? The military is the American people's military. We've been volunteer. It's been an all volunteer force since Vietnam. So because everybody volunteers for the military, you know, a few of us were almost voluntold, right? I went to the Marines after getting arrested a couple times, and the judge was just like, so are you interested in joining the military? Because this case might go away if you were to do that. And just suffice it to say, I was talking to a recruiter within like the next couple of hours. All right. But still, I volunteered. I still went and signed up the paperwork myself. But because this is like an all volunteer force, like that's the one thing I'm not a big fan of is I don't care about the polling and this, that, and I could just kind of do what I want. Like, I do think more things have to be explained to us. Like, more things should be explained to us, because at the end of the day, the forces are U.S. forces who themselves have volunteered to be here, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the 6 troops that we know. Those are 6 known. And I saw footage of the pilots the total crew should have been 6 because there's 2 pilots per bird. And we saw a couple of videos of some of the pilots who were being approached by local Kuwaiti nationals, and before they were being taken out of after they got out of their birds and landed via parachute, right? But one thing that I found to be very concerning for me is that I'm glad on one part, concerned on the other. We closed 2 of our American embassies, which is a good thing because we don't want a Benghazi 2.0 with a failure to send people to a certain place or anything like that. But at the same time, the fact that there was enough action or kinetic activity outside of embassies that we felt the need to close them is like super concerning for me. And so if we take a look here, it says that the senior U.S. officials reportedly confirms that American embassy in Riyadh was hit, likely by at least 2 drones that we saw. This just happened yesterday. Super sucks. You see the smoke coming in the background, that black smoke. You know what's so crazy about this video is that at the end of the day, it still shows you that Saudi Arabia is a vibe. You hear the music? You see the plumes of black smoke in the background. One of our embassies hit, which is just crazy to think. It says, so this is Kelly Mayer. She is with News Nation. I just spoke with President Trump. He said you will soon find out the retaliation for the attack against the U.S. embassy in Riyadh and for the U.S. service members killed. Now, he's talking about the U.S. service. Now, these are 2 different subjects she's talking about in one post, the U.S. service members in Kuwait and then the attack on our embassy in Saudi Arabia. He also told me he doesn't think boots on the ground will be necessary, but he's not ruling it out. State Department has now closed 2 of our embassies and one of the consulates in Pakistan, and we also have closed the embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Here's the thing. I mentioned this before. The Shiite aspect of the Muslim faith, it is Ramadan. They are pissed. And I think that it may have been a miscalculation to not only take out, and I say they because Israel took them out. We gave the intelligence, but Israel took out Khamenei, the supreme leader. And they've also seemingly been going after like the interim leader and the people that are voting for the new leader. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But the State Department not only closed those 2 embassies, but they're also urging U.S. citizens to leave 14 countries in the Middle East because this thing is doing nothing but expanding. They're telling them to depart now. I was on state.gov, and you can definitely see the urgency that if you're in any of these countries, all the way from Lebanon, of course, get your ass up out of Lebanon because Beirut is going down right now. Jordan, Kuwait. I don't know why you would be in Oman, but if you're in Oman, Israel, etc., get your ass up out of there because it is very, very intense. So for me personally, this just lets me know the escalation is real. We're seeing the true loss of, at least for now, I say 6 known to us as being lost. OK, the closing of 2 of our embassies, telling people to leave 14 countries if you're U.S. citizens. And then I don't know that this is going to go on forever. But the fact is, I think that when you get into the mud with people who really enjoy the mud, which is, I believe that this regional conflict is full of folks who ain't got shit to do sometimes, not everybody. But if you get down and dirty with folks down there, sometimes they don't care when you think you're done. You decide that you're pulling chalks at a certain time, but you kill one of their equivalents, at least from this complete sect for the Muslim faith, they're equivalent to the Pope during Ramadan, which is like killing the Pope during like Lent. This is starting to become a game of whose money is longer. Now, our money is much longer than Iran's, but when you're making $35,000 drones and we're making $4 million Patriot missiles that can intercept your drones and ballistic missiles, it becomes a game of cat and mouse. There are a lot of different countries who are urging the U.S. to say, listen, we need to figure this shit out, bro. We need to figure this shit out, bro. Because the Emiratis, this is from Faytas Network, the Emiratis say that it's projected to exhaust their interceptor missile stock within 1 week at the current rate of fire. The Qataris within 4 days. Both are urgently seeking additional military support from the United States. This is coming from Bloomberg. Imagine UAE, as long as their paper is beautiful Dubai, They didn't expect to have to freaking blow their load on this many interceptors in 1 week. If they run out of interceptors, we're going to have to bring in THAADs from other parts of Asia. We're going to have to start helping them with interceptions. We're going to have to do that from like the Arabian Gulf or maybe even from the Indian Ocean. And so they're saying, and so are the Qataris, they're saying like, hey, we're running out of shit. Could you help us, or could you wrap this up very soon? So America's allies in the Gulf say that this is a race against time. They need interceptors to handle Iran's counterattack, and they're running out very, very fast. This has happened all over the region. We already know what the deal is. And so we can see that how many interceptors are having to go up to repel Iran's onslaught from these countries who did not think they were going to have to do so. If these people start running out of interceptors and this war is still going on, not only are we going to see, hopefully not, American casualties go up, but we're going to start to see, of the 300 million people who live in the region, casualties go up like crazy. And then how much of that will these countries take before they're like beating on the door like, so America, we fuck with you, bro, but can we wrap this up? We ain't got, 500 of our people got taken out last week. So here's the thing. It's estimated that it costs $20,000 to $35,000 to make a drone in Iran, and it cost us $4 million to make a Patriot missile. Now, remember how accurate our Patriot missiles are. They can lock on to a stealth jet, and once it's locked on, the only way that thing is coming off is via radar. But it's $4 million. And it's not just the cost of the technology. It's also the QC that goes in there, quality control, the quality assurance that goes into it, the counterfeit parts of inspection that we have to do, the Buy American Act rules, even just painting, like the paint that goes on it, the skinning of the actual missiles themselves, like the process is crazy. And these drones, you know what I'm saying? They can go ahead and hire a little bit of child labor in Iran, go ahead and bang out a couple of drones. Iran's cheaper drones are quickly. Imagine using a $4 million Patriot missile or using your THAAD system to take out a drone that costs 20 racks. This is the thing that's like, we're very concerned with. By we, I mean they, because we're okay, but there are rumors that we're thinking about bringing some of our THAAD systems or some of our surface to air protection type missile systems from Asia, from the Philippines, from that area, just to be able to do more interceptions, which is a signal to me that we are also concerned about the number of interceptors we have for our American bases and assets in the region. That's why this headline kind of drew my attention. U.S. is stonewalling the request by some Gulf states to replenish their air defense interceptors as the supplies run low. We have shot several years worth of production in the last few days. So y'all are probably wondering, like, how the hell are the Iranians still able to launch ballistic missiles? How are they still able to launch drones? You got to remember, the Ayatollah, the president, the minister of defense, whatever they call themselves, they have been planning for this for years. They've been digging underneath ground, making tons of entrances for years. So they don't have the traditional radar, THAAD missile launchers, you know what I'm saying, back on a 7-ton truck. We're just ready to rock and roll. That's not how they do shit. They have specialized trucks that have the ability to launch ballistic missiles that they drive out from underground. Once they have a confirmed target, they fire them, and then they drive them back underground. So we literally would have to have someone from Space Command, from the Air Force, or from any of our other assets that can pinpoint a launch that's about to occur and take out the entrance and to take out the trucks. It's hard to do with a country with 90 million people. It's a big ass country, and they've been planning for this type of fight for decades. They're also starting to do their cybersecurity stuff. The cybersecurity attacks are already starting. Cyber warfare attacks are already starting. They're starting to do stuff like ransomware. They're starting to do stuff like DDoS attacks. The Iranian hackers have already started launching spy expeditions, digital probes, denial of access services. Now, this is not sponsored by Aura, but that's who I use to protect myself from this stuff, and I have linked them down below. But I'm just telling you, this is an article from yesterday. They've already started to try to target businesses for ransomware attacks. You got to imagine, how were they bankrolling themselves until this war started? Their slot machine was oil, baby. The Ayatollah, they would have the petroleum pumped out, whether it was crude or if it was refined or whatever. And then they would send us at the 80% was being bought up by China. And if the Strait of Hormuz has had less vessels willing to go through it or not able to go through it, Iran is threatening to mine the Strait of Hormuz. But you got to imagine, if you are a petroleum vessel and you have insurance companies starting to cancel your policies. They're threatening you. If you go through the strait, we're not going to insure your vessel. So people are like, well, fuck it, I'll just stay in the Gulf. You know, I've been wanting to kick it in Saudi Arabia anyway. They're staying at port. They're not willing to do it, or they're just floating around the Gulf. So if they're not able to get that oil through, they're not able to get their bankroll from Asian companies who are normally the ones that fund the existence of the regime, they're starting to do ransomware attacks. Now, that's a concern. That's something I think about, because they're going to start big and they're going to go small. Ransomware attacks of big companies like Chase Bank, maybe the Boeings of the world, people who got long money, yeah, they'll do it. But I don't want them coming down and coming after little old me. And not only that, we just fired the top cyber czar for the Department of Homeland Security. So for the Homeland, most of our cybersecurity stuff is taken care of by DHS, Department of Homeland Security. For the Department of Defense, they have their own DISA, or Defense Intelligence Services. OK, so we just fired the cyber czar because he was a freaking moron. He failed a polygraph test. He had one of his employees suspended for flicking off his Tesla Cybertruck. Mind you, the employee flicked off this Tesla Cybertruck while the Cybertruck was empty in a parking lot, and it had been parked there for days. The employee was upset that he couldn't also use the parking space to recharge his vehicle. So the employee was just flicking off a fucking Cybertruck. He didn't know it was his boss's Cybertruck. His boss was so butthurt by it that he used his camera in the Cybertruck to see who flicked off his vehicle and suspended him. So we got the head of CISA, the head of the cyber czar, the cyber command, with this wicked ass unibrow that I would normally have if I didn't get my shit plucked. Okay. Like, we have that type of stuff in leadership when it comes to cybersecurity. This is why I'm saying I'm all about the America first. If we stick to ourselves, we ain't got to worry about them all of a sudden have to increase their cyber attacks, them being Ukraine because, or excuse me, Iran, I say Ukraine, Iran, because we have decided to go in a regional war versus them. We know about the 6 troops that were unfortunately lost. We know about the dumbass politicians that don't have the ability to have a sense of empathy without immediately going back into politician mode when they talk about the death of those folks. The embassies being closed, the interceptors versus Patriot missile fight, the cyber attacks being increased. But I'm not sure about what we're being told of why this conflict got started. It's like a moving target, bro. So U.S. lawmakers said they have access to classified information. They said that the Trump administration's assertions about threats from Iran are incomplete, unsubstantiated, or flat out wrong. You got to remember, they said that another reason that we started this conflict is that Iran was about to do a preemptive strike and we wanted to get up in there. That's one thing that was told to us that seems to be a little bit different than may be true. Another thing that I'm concerned with, and this could do nothing but do escalations in the area. Give me a second. This could do nothing but make escalations happen in the area, is that apparently U.S. Marines opened fire on those demonstrators that were in Pakistan, trying to storm our embassy, which is fine by me. OK. At first, the story was said that it was local private security and local Pakistani police that opened fire. Apparently, it was U.S. Marines. And that's the first time that Marine security guard in a very long time have had to take out protesters trying to storm one of our embassies. The reason I'm concerned is because that can do nothing but escalate the people in the area. You kill somebody's cousin and they perceive the cousin was just throwing rocks, even if they're wrong, it can make it more fierce. So I'm glad we closed that embassy. But at the same time, it is unfortunate that we're not getting the stuff immediately how it is, and we're being told something before we have to figure out what the real deal is. So we have the embassy story changing. We have the Iranians were about to do a preemptive strike thing changing. Now we got this story from the Secretary of State as well as senators who are starting to say that the existential risk thing doesn't really seem to be on shaky ground. It seems to be on shaky ground, rather. Preston Stewart, he quote tweeted, so seems to be the third official saying that the U.S. began the campaign because Israel was going to strike Iran and would have retaliated by going after U.S. bases. Now, let me just pause for a second, bro. Imagine you're on a playground, right? Like, matter of fact, I got two sons. One's 5, one's 4. They go to the same preschool. They're on the playground at the same time sometimes. The teachers try to make sure that they're not, because my sons will jump somebody. My oldest son gets into a fight on the playground over a ball. He's going to get into the fight. Now, if my son came to me and I was like, why did you jump that? And they were like, well, I saw that brother was about to fight him and I knew he was going to throw the ball at me. So I said, fuck it, let's jump him. I'll be like, what? No, next time, let him fight one-on-one. If he throws that ball at you while he's fighting your brother, he can catch those hands. Don't just be jumping in there. The example I give is that last summer during Operation Midnight Hammer, before Operation Midnight Hammer existed, Israel was attacking Iran for 11 days. During those 11 days, the Iranians didn't lob a missile towards any of our bases. They didn't attack any of our ships. We jumped in and we joined when we hit them with B-2 bombers, and then we called it the 12-day war. So you mean to tell me last summer we weren't worried about them striking one of our bases if Israel went at it alone, but today or last weekend we was concerned about that shit? So now we got people rolling out that type of excuse. It just don't really hit me right.
Pushed into this battle by Benjamin Netanyahu. What's the truth?
Well, first, Brian, no one pushes or drags Donald Trump anywhere. He acts in the vital national security interest of the United States. And second, Secretary Rubio addressed this point yesterday after our Gang of 8 briefing. Israel faced an existential risk, and they were prepared to strike Iran alone. If that happened, Iran was very likely to target our troops. That may address the question of why now? Why not 2 weeks ago? Why not 2 months from now? The president, though, did not want to put our troops in harm's way. The more fundamental question, though, is why? Why did we have to carry out this operation against Iran? And as I said, that's because they have a vast missile arsenal that far exceeds our combined missile defenses, and it gets worse every single month. And that is an unacceptable threat to the United States.
So you mean to tell me that for the last month, we have floated into theater the USS Abraham Lincoln, the USS Gerald R. Ford, Pegasus aircrafts that can do refueling. We have aircraft that are able to act as if air traffic controllers, and they can fly in the skies and direct aircraft. We have brought in to Diego Garcia some of our B-2 bombers. We brought in F-35s, at least 2 submarines, thousands of troops. And we only attacked because little brother Israel was about to start throwing those hands. And therefore, we thought that Iran might attack one of our bases or some of our troops. Come on, man. You can't sell me a bridge, big homie. Now, Matt Walsh, I don't like this dodo head, but he does bring up a good point. So he's flat out telling us that we're in a war with Iran because Israel forced our hand. This is basically the worst possible thing that he could have said. I don't like Matt Walsh because some of the things he said about veterans, and he himself has never laced up the boots. He said that he doesn't believe that veterans should be receiving like 100% disability. I don't like him for some of his goofy ass shit he said about vets and us receiving disability benefits. But
I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible. Perhaps you'll report it that way. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon.
Now, that is what I will say. That is what the president said. Okay, he did say we wanted to get rid of them goddamn missiles and we wanted to degrade their Navy. But let's see what else you got to say there, sir.
The War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true because, in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Oh, okay. First of all, it sounds like he's standing in front of a short order cook and that dude is back there slanging saucers. You know what I'm talking about? Obviously, he's on Capitol Hill. I think that answer was for the politicians, which I'm all right, whatever. That answer's for the politicians. But we American people, that shit didn't hit my ear right, bro. So my little playground example earlier, we're big brother and little brother got into a fight and we kind of just jumping in. It feels, listen, I don't like my taxpayer dollars being used. It doesn't matter if it's for the folks that say it's our greatest ally or whatever. I just don't like the fact that shit is being used and I haven't been given like one concrete mission that I can either agree or disagree with. Let's just say, for instance, we're going in Iran. We're going to get rid of Ayatollah. We're going to put some troops on the ground. We're going to rebuild the roads. We're going to take all their oil. We're going to start fucking bitches. We doing everything. I'd be like, all right, I don't agree with it. You know what I'm saying? But at least you told me a clear path. There are two different things going on. The White House is trying to make sure that the Hill or Capitol Hill is okay by giving them one explanation. And then they're trying to give we, the people, an explanation. We're seeing stuff like a long drawn out war is not the president's intent. Though the regime has changed, this operation is about ending the threat posed to the United States by the Iranian regime. And then they're also supposed to say stuff like, what is your justification? Article 2 of the Constitution. Here's the thing that I don't think we realized when it came to the supreme leader. The Ayatollah Khamenei, he wanted to be a martyr. Y'all really got to think about this shit, bro. The Ayatollah told his close circle in the event of an war, he preferred to stay in place and become a martyr rather than to be judged by history as a leader who had gone into hiding, according to officials. He was in his office in another part of the compound as senior leaders gathered for a meeting. He asked to get a briefing when it concluded. The missile struck as soon as it began. Do y'all realize what that means if this is true? This dude was 86 years old. When he went to the after place, he was about to get all the virgins. Now, the virgins weren't probably going to be very happy with an 86-year-old, barely working penis. But let's just say, you know what I'm saying, he 86 years old. You know what I'm talking about? We took him out. Now, I'm very confident that diabetes or heart failure, something else was going to take him out and soon. But we took him out. We took him out during Ramadan. And now a lot of people are mad about it. And he was okay with it. So now we got this big thing. By we, I mean Israel took it out and we gave the intelligence. But now we have this big thing going on where he wanted to be a martyr. He was in his building. We gave information for him to be taken out and he didn't give a fuck. And the significance of the Ayatollah's assassination is a big one for the United States. So for me personally, not only is it makes him seem more legitimate to people in the region. And so the biggest thing I wanted to highlight here, this is Daniel, and I can't pronounce his last name, but he is a Muslim. He's a founder of MuslimSkeptic.com. The biggest thing I wanted to point out with his statement is this makes the supreme leader in the legitimacy of the Islamic Republic to record levels in the eyes of the Shia globally, increasingly the Sunnis. This just makes them seem more legitimate. That's why you see out of the 300 million people in the area, people attacking our embassies because they were down with the martyr. I think that not only do we have to deal with the fact that he's gone, the Ayatollah's taken out, but we also have to deal with Israel's not playing around with the next one being voted in. This is originally reported by Bloomberg. This is from Class Report on X. A building belonging to Iran's Assembly of Experts, the body responsible for selecting the Ayatollah's successor, has been attacked by Israel.
ساختمان خبرگان میدان رسالت همین 2-3 دقیقه پیش.
So that building itself, they were beginning to vote on the next, because they had an interim supreme leader and they were going to vote on the next one. Israel found out they was about to gather the vote and they fucking yeeted the building out of existence, bro. I really want to leave y'all with this thought. I've said this earlier. I'm going to reiterate it. U.S. made Patriot missiles, the air defense missiles. They've been crazy successful at taking out the drones that were being used by Iran. Other ballistic missiles as well. They have a 90% interception rate. It's pretty good. All right. If one of y'all freaking DBs on one of y'all favorite football teams had a 90% interception rate every time a pass was thrown at the wide receiver, he was recovering. That dude would be a freaking millionaire. But 90% interception rate. But the thing is those things cost $4 million to make. Where those drones only cost Iran 20,000, and we don't know how many drones they have. We do believe we thought they had about 2,500 ballistic missiles at the beginning of this conflict. Through the weekend, we think they used about 500 to 700 of their missiles, which means they use between 15 and 25% of their missiles. Math for Marines. I'm doing this in real time. If I'm wrong, pound sand. Drones cost less. They don't go as fast, but they are able to slip through places. You've seen all the damage that have been done throughout the world with those things. Listen. If this is your first time stopping by, thank you for watching me run my grape. If this is not your first time stopping by, hit the subscribe button, join the battalion. I would love to have you here. We will speak soon.